Vous allez découvrir maintenant
So now you are going to discover an entirely new
table d'examen de toute
examination
diagnostic.
tool. This is the
Et cette
latest
table
generation.
d'examen va permettre
This
aux
examination
dermatologues,
tool will allow the
aux experts
dermatologists
capillaires
and the
de
capillary
réaliser toute
experts
une batterie
to
d'examens
carry out a whole battery of
conduisant à
tests
une véritable
which
carte
will lead to an
d'identité
identity
du
card
cheveu.
of the scalp and hair. And this is new. The creation of this software allows the client to understand why, to understand how they can remedy this hair loss, and it will also allow them to know how long the treatment will last. The important thing is that this will allow monitoring. This monitoring will be done through comparing the results through sketches and photographs which are taken all the way through the different parts of the treatment. Hair Analyzer is made up of a PC, so some software, and a very technically advanced digital camera. This camera will allow us to do different enlargements of the photos, and the enlargements are chosen depending on the type of test carried out. So that is what is analysed, but I'd like to ask Yolande Zieloni to join me. So here on the screen we're going to see the different types of tests that we can carry out. In order to carry out a precise diagnosis, we have to first start with an evaluation of the hair capital of each client. This means that we take a series of photographs to create a profile. To find out what their hair volume is, we create capillary mapping, and this capillary mapping will allow us to measure the bald patch or the area with alopecia, or sometimes both. Sometimes we have a bald patch with a little duvet around it. And this will allow us to evaluate the number of hairs per centimeter squared, which will then allow us to do comparison after a treatment to see the change. Capilloscopy will show us with very detailed enlargements the state of the scalp so that we can treat aggravating factors if there are any. Then we can monitor it. Sebometry, as its name indicates, will allow us to measure the amount of sebum fabricated that day, and this is once again monitored later on in the procedure. Here we can see on the tab, and then as we can see on screen, there are calculations made. The computer shows an image which we can then compare and readjust. In this case, we can see that there is 6% of sebum production. Next, we use the same principles to do a desquamation test. So this is to say to see what the pellicular situation is of the scalp, and in the same fashion we will be able to check it and monitor it after treatment. Microtrichograms allow us, as we said earlier, to check and calculate the number of hairs in the anagen, catagen and telogen phase, which will allow us to see if there is abnormal hair loss, and we will also be able to verify this at the end of treatment to make sure that we have normalized hair loss. We will also carry out a hair thickness test. We will check the hair in minute detail. Here we have a test called before and after, which allows us to show on screen the difference after having used a capillary correction technique on this gentleman. So he had very light alopecia. Now we are going to see a hair loss simulation. Somebody who comes to visit us, when we prove to him what would happen if he didn't act, will not be able to resist acting. So when they come to visit our institute, the important thing is that we will be able to show the clients comparisons of all the tests that they have carried out. We will have the result of the microtrichogram, but this is also for the client to be able to see on screen the results. Here we have the densitometry and the capilloscopy with the different dates, the sebum tests, the desquamation tests as well, the comparative test, as I was saying, for the trichogram earlier. And here we come back to the hair loss simulation so that the client can understand what their face will look like if they do not act and if they become gradually bald. It's never nice to not recognize one's own face. Everything is stored in this database so that we can answer all questions about capillary anomalies, baldness correction techniques, and their solutions.